I once had a professor tell me when I was applying for graduate school to send the poems that had my guts in them. And so I'm going to read you some poems that have my guts. After I told the teacher my mother beat me. When we saw her sitting the way she was, beneath the window in our living room on our black leather love seat, with her left hand a deep oak curled forward under her chin, and her face damp like soil after hard rain. Tiny, her boyfriend locked himself in the only bedroom of our apartment. And I walked to where she sat as if disturbing some goddess wanting to balm my betrayal. She placed her right hand in the between of my chest where my breast would one day form and round and said, "Now they're going to take you away from me." Minding her will the best I could, I sat in the empty seat beside her and watched how the light of the afternoon spilled through the blinds and reflected off the bleach-white walls of our apartment, striping my mother's honey brown face blue. An afternoon after childhood, the sky warbles above the 100 years oaks and the muddy rows of the cornfield, and just 2 months into adulthood, I drift atop the humid countryside air, and I buoy somewhere between faith and disbelief in an aloof God, and I think of my mother's raised hand, her voice submerged beneath rage, her brown body like the trunk of a tree that's been done wrong, and I think about how the sun sets on the good and the shitty, about how the sun's determined to rise again, then falls the next day, about how I can't weep at my mother's wrath or at God's unwillingness to turn off the world for a second and allow me to breathe. Phone sex with an older boy. The boy on the other end of the line will moan, but you will stay silent, listening to the slimy slick of his hand on his penis as he imagines you there with him, that he is pressing it in your asshole. In the dark, you will lay naked underneath the blankets you've laid on the floor. It will remind you of the first bed you did not share, the one your mother laid for you in the living room when you were 4. You will think about moaning back at his heaving breath as you walk your fingers up and down your open thighs, the way prostitutes stalk sidewalks and corners at night, and you will wonder if this will make him love you. Divine grief. Even God turned to art in his time of grief, took up the bodies of believers, pushed them over, blinded them in the middle of streets, met with them on the tops of mountains, opened them up like gifts and whispered, "Write my Adam and Eve," about how they poisoned themselves and their children, write of Job and Jacob, about Sarah's rape, about Judah's exile, wailing women in famine, write of 2-year-olds genocided, about John's head, write my son flogged, his limping, and being nailed to 2 cross beams of wood. Roots. Mommy told me she used to clean houses with me, Mom, and cook and look after children. She told me she used to go to school with the white kids and go home with black kids and fight white kids who disliked her black and fought black kids who disliked her being with white kids at school. I did not fit anywhere, she told me, and I began to root in her ground, plume and vibrate beneath my own self reaching toward her surface. On being educated by white people. Your white graduate school professor snarls, "That's not what I meant, Erica," at you, when you cross your face at her comment, "No human is completely oppressed," which makes you think of the slaves for the 4th time that day, of the broken chest bone of that 15-year-old slave girl who fell asleep after working all day and staying up in the dark to watch the master's newborn. How his wife crawled from her bed when she heard her baby weep, how she, with a stick, beat that slave girl, who was somebody's baby, until she broke her chest open when she found that slave girl unable to beat fatigue up with her plum-colored fist, how she let that slave girl die in a pool of her own blood, which makes you think of the novel your professor signed to read that week, the one written by a white woman, the one where for 3 chapters the Chicana woman is beaten almost to death and drugged and locked up in an asylum, which makes you think about the women, both brown and black, split and cracked open before the gods of the system, which makes you wonder where your black and the Chicana's brown meet in like the Pacific and the sun at evening, spilling over into each other's blues and yellows, purple treasures and grief, which makes you wonder how the Chicana's brown and your black are kin in a world determined to wash everything white. Your professor comes up to you after she splits her classroom into group and says, "I'm sorry you have to educate everyone in all your classes." Sorry, I've read lots of poetry, but we're not at 10 minutes yet. White folks. I am you. I am your sister, darker, but yours, and you are mine by blood, by our shared blood. My grandmommy birthed you, she sings to you now. Your granddaddy raped her, he swims inside of me now. I am you, I am your black sister, you are black, sister. Black boy and the missionary. 1. The boy, 6 years old, 3 feet 4, free-forming dreads just beginning to lock, stares down the 6'3" white missionary and calls him a bitch-ass nigga. 2. I imagine the bloomed magnolia trees, how the summer droops its flowers, how its sweaty petals would float and land on the dirt roads, twisting their way through the housing project where the boy lives to keep myself from laughing. 3. He's red and concerned. How dare that boy call him outside his name? How dare a poor sable boy do what he please? 4. I want guts for the guts I have misplaced or have yet to grow. 5. I should have cracked up in the white man's face and asked, but is he lying? To love Jane Eyre. I locked myself up the way Rochester locked up Bertha Mason in his attic. Took her from her country, got all her riches, put his white penis in her golden body. I dismembered my own, slid out my black skin, made Bertha a monster and not my mother who fought with men her entire life. I laughed with friends about this black woman who was abandoned and flung herself out a window in a fire. And I flung myself out from high places and laughed at my falling, burning, falling self, laughing at Bertha about to burn up, or Jump, who laughs at me, laughing with white kids who laugh at her body that's like my own. I disjointed the questions about Charlotte Bronte, about why the only black character in the novel is mad, about why Bertha jumped from the highest plate window, about Bronte not wanting to write her way out of destroying another black body. And I'm going to start reading some persona poems, so bear with me. Betty May, 1847, Friendship, Georgia. One day when the massa was clear across the field, I says to my mama, I's free. With her big old eyes, yellow round them acorns she got, like that of a hootin' owl, she twisted her neck round and told me, if yous don't keep picking, massa gonna come and split your back the way the cotton split the bud to bloom, your blood the water of his cotton. But I says to her, Mama, I's free. I's free because God is somewhere beyond this cotton and them trees, somewhere beyond the mountains and the clouds, and even somewhere beyond the massa in his field. I says to her, Mama, I's free. I's free in the mind, and massa ain't my God. My massa chained by me, by my bones and blood. I says, Mama, I's free like hummingbirds, because God done freed me. African American Griot, 1619 and present. We boil our grief in a pot of gumbo, hot with the bones of slave croons, the tendrils of cotton thorns, the juice of Jim Crow, the okra of a plum-colored fist raised to the heaven, the rice of a preacher promising a promised land, and the meat of pulverized black bodies. We bake our English into sweet potato pie, creamy with the smashed up thick-thighed yams of the master's whip, vibrating black backs, the butter of Mike Brown's blood underneath his 4 hours dead body in the street, and the dust and cinnamon nutmeg bullets that took both Tamir Rice and Dr. King. Yes, we prepared this meal for generations, gathering our anger, floating in an ocean of dead. We cut it, fried up crispy as catfish, and anointed with Louisiana hot sauce. Thank you.